We all question God. I mean, sometimes life just isn't fair. Bad things happen, bad people get ahead while the innocent suffer. And we just want to throw our hands up in disgust and say, why? I think of Justin. Justin was 17 years old, and he was a kid in one of my groups when I was a youth pastor. A number of years ago, he and some of his buddies were driving on a dark street one night and lost control of the vehicle. The friend of his who was driving the vehicle walked away with barely a scratch on him. The other friend in the front seat, he just broke his arm. But Justin was in the back seat without his seatbelt on, and he shattered his pelvis. The injuries were really bad, and he had a lot of internal bleeding. It was the middle of the night, and as his youth pastor, I got a phone call. Justin's in the hospital, get up there and see him. So his parents and I, we drove to the city, to the big hospital, and spent all night together, praying and talking. And then I remember when the doctor came in, and he said, "This bleeding is just too bad. His pelvis has been shattered, and the shards of bone have cut him in so many places on the inside of his body, we just can't stop it all. And he's bleeding faster than we can put new blood in. There's nothing we can do." And his parents were hit with that question. Why, God? Justin wasn't drinking. His friends were sober. They weren't on drugs. He was going to be offered a scholarship to play soccer in college. He had a bright future ahead of him and everything to hope for. But all of it, at age 17, was taken away. Why, God? 2,600 years ago, the prophet Habakkuk lived, and he dealt with those same questions. Why isn't life fair? Why does God let bad things happen? He asked all of these questions, and he saw his people around him choosing to not serve God. He saw an evil empire, the empire of the Babylonians, rising up, and he knew that they were going to come and conquer his nation. And he asked God, why? And then waited for his response. And here's what God said. Look at the proud. They trust in themselves, and their lives are crooked. But the righteous will live by faith. Those 6 words are very powerful. The righteous will live by faith. What is God saying there? People who follow him, the righteous, they won't live because of powerful governments. They won't live because they have wealth or strength or because they've picked themselves up by their bootstraps. They won't live because they're talented or because they're going to be getting an education or because they have food or water or shelter. They will live because of faith. They will live because they trust God. So following God is trusting God. Following God is not trusting in yourself or in the things that you have, not in your education, your home, your job. It's trusting in God. Trusting that when life isn't fair, he still has my best interests at heart. Trusting that when things stink, God is with me and he loves me. One thing we learned from Habakkuk is that it's okay to question, but what's not okay is losing faith. The God of the universe loves us and cares for us. What makes more sense? Trusting in temporary things like money, jobs, ourselves, others, or trusting in God, the eternal God who created everything that exists and loves us personally? My prayer is that all of us will learn to trust in him.